Hello, hello. This is Uni. Welcome to my channel. This is the channel for all of us to learn about the personal development, personal growth, and self improvement. Welcome back again to everyone to my YouTube channel podcast, Higher and Beyond. And I have Soham here with me. And before all of you guys, especially before we dig deeper into our discussion today with Soham, I'm going to introduce you who is Soham is. Yes, for all of you who doesn't know who Soham is, Soham Varkapshreeam is a mentor, author, a coach, and HR team on the one of the biggest company in the UK, United Kingdom. And Soham also has more than 24 years experience as an HR and plus 13 years experience as the finances. So Soham is very passionate about empowering seasoned HR leaders to thrive in the corporate arena by cultivating composure, compassion, and resilience through coaching and mindfulness strategies. So let's welcome Soham Varkapshreeam. Hi,
Hi,
Soham.
Uni. Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to be with you today. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm really, really happy to share the wisdom and the knowledge I have gained over the years with your listeners and whoever chooses to listen. As you introduced me, that I've been in HR for past 24 years. I'm a qualified
Wow.
and experienced HR professional. I've worked for multinational organizations within UK. I'm originally from India, but I live in UK for the last 50 years. And I'm currently writing a book, How to Be Successful in 90 Days in a New Job. And I the reason I felt I wanted to write this book because I've sort of, talking to my cousins, talking to my young nieces, nephews, I can see that they were actually, some of them were struggling, asking me questions. Again, me and my husband both, um, because I've been working over 38 years of my life. So I've gained, a lot of experience and, from that, I have got a lot of wisdom with it, you know, and
Wow.
that's why my young nieces and nephews come to me and say, Auntie, we are going through this. What do we do next, basically? So
Hmm.
that then gave me the idea that why should I not write a book? So with AI and myself, I'm writing a book called How to Be Successful in 90 Days in a New Job. And I wanted to talk about this in today's podcast. So I just want to go right in it. But before I go into it, do you want to ask me any questions? Do you want to know
Oh
anything?
yeah, I mean, oh gosh, that's actually a lot of information, and I know you. We've been kind of, working together for quite, 2, 3 years back, and I'm so
That's
really inspired by you, and I can tell that you are one of my inspiration in my personal development journey. And yeah, I mean, thank you so much for being here on my show, on my podcast. And I know, like what I said, wow, about the employment, about the HR, which is you've been working and you have a lot of experience for more than 24 years in HR. And you also now writing the book called How to Be Successful in 90 Days in a New Job. And oh gosh, so interesting about the book Employment, which is I can tell that young people actually need this kind of inspiration from the expert. I can tell that you're going to talk about this one. How and what kind of challenge do you have, especially an HR before in your experience, to actually to recruit the people, to hire people, young people to work on the employment before we talk about the 90 days uh, successful to get a new job.
Yes, I mean, before we, as you say, we talk about the book, what I wanted to say, like from my experience, you know, um, as I've worked, over 38 years of my life, what I
Mm,
find that, in my experience, I didn't have this, and I think it's important to have this, that when you have a new recruit, is it important that manager don't just expect them to just go through the job specification, and show them on the first day what to do, and then just leave them to it and expect that the job is getting done, but actually on a weekly basis, on a daily basis to start off with, is actually mentoring that individual, the new recruit, to be successful, especially when you have a person, an employee who's new, you know, quite fresh from either the university, college, or school. They need hand holding before they can become a successful and actually in that role. So it's not just a primary, employees um, duty to make sure that they are successful in the role, but it is also primary duty of the manager who is recruiting that new employees, is his or her role to make sure that their new recruit is successful, you know, because it, I believe that if the employee is failing, and it's a failure of the manager as well, because manager has to be not just a manager, but they have to be a mentor and a coach, you know, because I think you don't just become a manager, you become a mentor being a manager, you know.
yeah. Mm,
So I think, and I will say I've not had some of the experience in life in the new job hasn't been um, very positive in a sense, but I'm a very, very proactive, and always have been a proactive individual, from the start go. So I was always inquisitive. I was an individual who would actually ask questions. If I didn't understand, I would actually probe more, you know, and wouldn't be afraid of asking that I didn't know this, how do I do this? But I know many people, some people are very shy, and some people do not know how to communicate, So in this case, you have to be there for them, because sometimes I think the manager's been in an organization much longer than the new employee. So the manager has the history of what's going on in the organization, what is the value of the organization, what what different departments do, and managers. I think the importance of the responsibility lies more on the manager and the team than the actual employee, you know. And if employee is shy, then give them opportunity to come out of their shell. That's so important.
yeah. Oh wow. This is interesting. It's actually come from the leader first to welcome all of the employees. So kind of role model about the leaders. And now going back to the books about how you can be successful in 90 days, especially in the new job. And the idea of writing this book is actually you've got kind of feedback from your cousin, from the young people who has a challenge in their career journey. So, what do you think about the biggest changes happening in the job market right now related with the, oh gosh, young people and the career for the young people in this? Well, right now.
I think, the time I started working and the time that we are at the present is very, very different. Um,
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot more support, I will say, in today's market, and maybe most probably because I think the industry I worked in, um, and kind of organization I worked in, I felt there were a lot more support um, than what had been. So it depends which industry you're working in. Yeah, that what really matters. And as you say, Uni, so correctly, the leader has to actually be an example for the employee. Yeah, and to become a great leader, one has to actually carry on training oneself to become a great leader. You can't just say that I've gone to university or I've done some form of degree and that's me training finished. You have to. They say, I'm a great believer in CPD, continuous professional development. So you should learn on a regular basis, beside doing your own job, different trainings. When you take on different trainings, what it does, it gives you equipment to actually do your own job better, but it gives you also the tools to actually treat your staff, your employee, with respect, and also support them, because it helps you mentor and coach them as well. And it's through mentoring and coaching that you can sustain them to be more confident, and it also gives you confidence. So into the I believe that that's what makes a manager successful, and managers successful. um, and I think one should respect themselves as well as respect the other people who's around them, including their staff, and not just treat their employee as an employee, but part one of them, because sometimes some people may not be able to tell you 100%. Sometimes you may have to read between the lines, and what are the things that can actually support them to do the job that you have actually employed them as best of their ability. So it's really important. And for what I would like to add there is, a manager needs to actually have one-to-one stand-up meeting, you know, wh- first thing in the morning, 5 minutes, not even more than 5 to 10 minutes, just making sure everybody's on the track and everything is being done. So that way you get to know. And some people may need more time, so you give them separate time to make sure that the task which has been assigned to them is being carried out to the required standard, not leaving it until, like, say, a month's time, when the job you know is not being done, and you haven't even actually communicated with your new staff, that they're not doing it correctly. So also having a week to week meetings with them, proper one-to-one meetings, where what objectives being actually set and what is being met out of those objectives, and what still needs to be required to be finished, and what is the hindering them to finish those tasks. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. It is like what you said, to become successful in the company, especially, first it comes to the leader first, like for example the manager, and how you treat other employees, to actually like being there, to like for example you giving an example about being there to check in 5 minutes before start working, and how are they going, are they actually ready to start working, or this kind of stuff, etc., etc. So I think this is one of the trick and tips that you are um, trying to tell us how to become successful in the 90 days. But before we dig deeper into that, I'm curious about this one. um, Indeed, about the manager, it goes from the leaders first, the managers first, the manager from the manager. Everything is come from the who is the leaders is going
Yeah.
to actually improve and how to bring the company to the next level or to success, right? So from your perspective, talking about the employment, what skills and traits are employers really valuing in job candidates nowadays?
Well, depending on what job you mean. So, say for an
Mm-hmm.
example, I'm going to go with the HR because I have the experience within HR. So, like, say, different, I'm at the senior level of HR. So, at my level, they're looking at have I got the confidence to stand in front of a senior management team and actually do a presentation, or persuade them in employment law. So if I've got a case that's come up to me which is quite a complicated case, and for me to then advise my senior management team to say, look, if we've got a couple of options with this case, if this case is if we take this option, then you've got potential tribunal. If we take this option, then we have a way of getting the employee to do the role, right? But so that's the initially the recruiters are looking for. Have I got the confidence to do the job? Have I got the confidence to actually be able to communicate with my stakeholders? Yeah. So that's and the somebody who's a startup, who's a very fairly new to a job market. Yeah, they will say, are they open to take on the role, basically? So they will look at the job. Say for example, they are office admin. Yeah, so they will see, can they actually multitask? Are they going to be able to actually pick up the information from this spreadsheet and put that onto this document here? So it's a very simple task, but it's the person who's going to become our office admin. Do they have enough understanding of able to do this? So can they actually work on Excel spreadsheet? Can they work on Word document? And can they transfer the information from the spreadsheet onto you know uh, the letter? So can they draft a letter? So depends, they might require to draft a letter. Can they draft the letter? In my days when I was young, we didn't have chat GPT, right? So we had to draft letters, without the help of chat GPT. So, we were working at different level. But in today's time, young people have chat GPT. You got AI system who can actually help you write really, really outstanding letters. You know, you might have to tweak it slightly,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh my God, it's kind of simple right now. It's a
Yes,
little bit easier than how it was
yes,
before. Oh
100%.
God. Mm.
So it depends. I will say, even before I talk about the book I'm writing, I would like to add that, when a person takes on a job, or one person goes for a job, really, really read the job specs, the job description, and take from the job description what task you can do it very easily, confidently, without asking for any help. Yeah, and look at the task that you are not 100% sure, but you know that you can actually, if you put your hand to it, you can do it 50%, but you may need some guidance. Yeah, so put some like percentage on there, and then you can say, okay, if say about 80% of tasks on this job description I can actually do, then you know what, you should go for that job, because the other 20% will fall into its place as you are doing the job itself, you know. But be confident in yourself that you can do a job, because I would also like to add, that often people have studied certain, I studied according to my job role. Yeah, because for me to be going forward in my career, I had to study. CRPD is the body of the HR body in England. And it's important that you have that qualification. So I studied according to the job that I worked as, but not necessarily many young people nowadays study one thing at university, they come out with a degree, and sometimes, not sometimes, majority of the time, I would say 80% of the time, many young people don't go into a job that they have actually got a degree in. Majority of time they've gone into a role which is nothing to do with the degree that they've studied.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing engineering is a specific task, specific studies that people go into, if engineering, knowing full well that this is the field I will go in, and they actually will carry forward. But many engineers I know have then diverted slightly, in a different career path. So this is one thing I think, where if one person who's listening to this podcast thinking, what do I do before going into uni? My experience is, you know, actually after 16, look for a job, go and do a job, because the practical will then allows you to understand what you really want to do, and then go and do the study in line with actually doing your job. You know, I
Yeah.
I started working at the age of 18. I didn't have hardly any qualification, and but what it did, it gave me a lot of life experience, lot of work experience, and then as I went on the path, I then studied according to what I was working at.
Wow. Interesting about the 80% majority of the young people now looking for the job. It's not based on the degree that they have. And also interesting about if you want to apply for a job, write carefully what is actually the job description that the company offering.
Yes,
Oh gosh, and I love the skills and traits the employee that really need nowadays. About you mentioned about confidence. I think this is I can tell confidence is really powerful to actually it's actually the yeah, I would say the top skills if you want to find a job. And also you mentioned about communication, so basically about public speaking and confidence here as a skills nowadays if you want to find
yes.
a job.
Definitely. And
Yeah.
having the right attitude. I think,
Okay.
you know, it's so important. Sometimes I hear, like, you are being given a task from your immediate manager. And I've also hear sometimes a new recruit turn around and say, "Oh, but that's not my job. Why am I doing this job?" Don't, because I think what is important. Think about it. When I say right attitude, think about it. What can I learn from this? If this is not the task, okay, which is, it may not be part of your job spec, but is a task that you're learning something. I learning something new. If you have that attitude, that what am I learning from this? And where can I use this in the future? Why is it, important that I have this attitude? So have this open dialogue with your manager, but have this openness within your own self as well. Having the correct attitude is very, very important in an organization.
Ooh, wow. I think this is also related about with the coaching, personal development, having the right attitude. Also, you mentioned about the multitasking in here. You mentioned about so how actually young people or everyone who want to be successful in a new job, by doing multitasking things and having the right attitude and how you want to learn. People want to learn about new things.
Yes.
every
And
day.
and with that, I want to add one more thing. As I'm glad that as you're repeating it, it makes me actually rethink. The other thing is very important is organization. You know, when one person organizes themselves well in the start of the day, they can do many tasks and perform many good things. So first of all, when a task is being given to you by your manager, or more than one task, because you're not going to be given one task to do. You'll be given many tasks, you know, and sometimes you may not just get job from just your immediate line manager. You may get a job from different people depending on who you're working with. Yeah. So what you need to do is prioritize the task which has been given to you and make a list of those tasks as per the number of priority to give them one, two, three, four, you know. But also, I would like to add that sometimes when you have actually prioritized your task and given them the number that you will do your task with, right? Sometimes something becomes more important. You've been given something else which is more important than the four tasks that you've got on your piece of paper. Yeah. So
Yeah.
sometimes you'll say, okay, I'll push this down, I do this first, then I'll carry on with this. Yeah. But while you're doing this, it's very important that you keep your line manager updated with what's going on. Because that way he knows that you haven't forgotten the task that he's primarily given it to you.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm. Oh, wow. Another thing that is just mentioned, actually communicated with your manager, so the manager know what is you are actually done with the first primary task or whichever task that they are given from.
Yes.
Oh, gosh. And I think this is interesting. Well, I'm not actually talking about young people or whatever, but anyway, I think this is a very important tips as an employee to be confident, to have a good communication, and having the right attitude, which is include the multitasking, which is multitasking mean learn from it, even though it's not your job, but having this kind of willingness to learn new things in the job area or in the company, in the work area or things like that, and the prioritize also here. Oh gosh. And it is interesting because I wanted to ask you about any tips for someone trying to make their job application stand out after this.
Yes, and how you can make your job stand out, job application stand out, is try to see, compare your skill set with the job specification, the job, because in the advert you got the job spec there. So you say, as I said earlier, that see, how much of that can you do basically, um, and that's one thing. Once you apply for the job, try to phone up the recruiter, because job market is very different what it is now than what it was like 20 years ago. In the 90s, 80s, and the 90s, I could leave a job and I could walk in another job very easily, right? Um, as we've gone further into 2000 and now in the current work market, it's not like that. You have to be, train yourself to for the interviews. So you have to make sure that your current skill set matches the job spec. Then speak to the recruiter. This is where the step in the door is. Speak to the recruiter and say how your experience aligns with the job specification and requirement of the employer, right? That's one route. The other route is actually applying for a job directly with the employer and get, no, go through the recruiter. Because sometimes a recruiter has their own agenda, and sometimes your application may not go forward than just the recruiter. you know so that's what it is. So I think be confident. And I would always say, and this is not just for the young people, everybody who's listening to this and looking for next role, is, while you're looking for your next role, keep upgrading yourself. Your personal development is so important. Do other things, go and do short courses. LinkedIn has many short courses, Google has many short courses, whatever interests you, as well as according to the job that you're looking for. So if you actually, train yourself on these short courses, what that will give you is it will give you self-esteem. It will give you self-confidence. So then when the time comes to do the interviews, when the time comes to talk to the recruiter, you have this acquired skills, so you will automatically have self-confidence to talk very openly to the recruiters. You know, go and actually also do, there are loads of YouTube on the YouTube. There's interview techniques, how describe yourself, all of that. Go and do that. Train yourself, and that way you equip yourself to be in the right job at the right time.
Mm, yeah. Oh, right. It's a beautiful. So, what's actually the most important piece of advice you've given to them about entering the workplace nowadays? Because it's so different from 20 years ago to now. Yeah, it's so much different.
It is, to be honest, it is very different, but people's I see still very similar kind of attitude than what I did like 20 years ago. Young people still hesitate, you know, they still stand back, because they may not want to share their personal life story with. Not everybody's open, but the thing is, you don't have to share your personal life with other people. There are plenty of other things to talk about with your colleagues, you know and I think, to be part of the culture, I think one, and this goes to everybody, who goes in a new job, you know go and talk to people, go and talk to colleagues, get to know them, you know personally, talk to them. What's your interest? What interests you? What interests them? That way you get to know other people. That way you feel part of that company, you know and it's a two-way communication. Yeah. As much as the new employees, um, what's a task, or something that they need to do, as well as is also the people within the organization making you feel welcome. But you as a new person has to make the first step, to say, hi, how are you, how's things, you know in England. This is the start, how we start a conversation. Oh, it's a horrible weather, because we tend to have a very bad weather all the time, raining and stuff. So that's, the conversation starter. Saying, oh, how was your journey into work? It's like short talk. So you start with that and you then increase it. So it's, I think, as I said, it's our attitude that really makes us or breaks us. You know, Initially we can be shy, and it's a very normal thing for one person to be shy, but come out of your shell. If you are reading a book, you can talk about a book. So there are lots of different ways of actually starting off a conversation.
Mm, yeah, this is actually the power of the communication. This one of the skills that you mentioned about if you want to be successful in the uh, workplace nowadays.
Yes, and
Yeah.
it's very important. I think, one should actually make an effort to mentally, learn different things, because when we learn different things, it will give us an option to talk about many different topics. It doesn't then stop you. Then, if you got a hesitation of talking personally about yourself, because some people do have that hesitation that they don't want to talk about their, and we don't need to talk about our personal life. But when you say, as I said, if you have read a book or if you have done some form of training, you have then the option to talk about those things, you know, because when we read books, what does that do? The writer is actually sharing their experience with us, yeah, and me as a reader is actually going into the writer's life and reliving the experience of the writer within my life, yeah.
Yeah.
And because what I read, I used to read many books. I listen to books now, but I because I'm talking from my experience. When I read books, I visualize whatever I'm reading within my own mind. So that gives me an option that, when I meet a new people, if when I meet a friend, it gives me a chance to talk about the book I'm reading and what I'm learning from the book.
Mm. Yeah.
So there are many ways we can look at it, of actually communicating. There is not just one way of communicating. But I think the message I would like to actually convey here to people is, always expand your horizon. Don't stop. If something is not working this way, ask yourself a question. Okay, how can I do this differently to get a different result? You do one thing same way, you get same result. You need to do it differently to get a same different results. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
you have to try different ways of achieving it, because you can achieve it. And don't sometimes what we have in our mind, what should the result will be, not necessarily the result will be that way, you know. It may come in a different format, you know.
Mm.
Universe has a way of giving you result in a different way. So don't
Yeah.
be actually stuck with your own idea. Be open
Mm.
and
Right.
flexible. When we become flexible and open, right? Then what happens when the change come in our lives? Because in an organization, once the new recruit has become there, worked there for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, they've now become an old hand. Other people is new, somebody new comes. Yeah. So in when you're in an organization, say you worked in an organization for 5 years, now organization has a change coming up. They do change of structure, they have redundancy coming up because another company has acquired them, or another company has acquired them. So that means they have to transfer to a new company. So many changes come. So, why do changes come? Because organizations want to grow. In the
Yeah.
same way, in our lives, we have to grow as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
if we don't change with the organization, we get left behind. You know,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know so we I think as an employee, we have to change in our time, but we have to change with the organization. And I believe one should keep upskilling themselves. When you upskill yourself, you have so many different ways, avenues to actually take on things. Like I have, apart from having my CRPD management, accounting, I've got management accounting degree as well as I've got human resources degree, right? And but within my own field, I keep upgrading myself. And in 2000, I then took on the coaching career, so as a coach, I'm a mindfulness coach, I'm a life coach, I've done a CBT, I've done ACT. So I've done many, many different modalities within coaching. So when I'm then coaching my clients, I have many, many skill sets that when my client is talking to me, I'm able to understand them at a different level, you know. So my advice to people, um, at any level you are in your career, keep upgrading yourself. You know, don't just, yeah, Netflix is good to watch Netflix. Because I do watch Netflix. But not to spend your time, just watching Netflix. There are many ways of you know uplifting yourself, basically, And personal development is must. I think it's very important for every individual to, continuously personal development yourself, you know, because even you learn every time you do something new.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah. It's so beautiful that you mentioned about personal development here. I think this is also one skills that every people can never stop learning. Even though now you learn about personal development, just be open and be flexible. Learn about it again, not just about the personal development, but any kind, like you just mentioned about. Yeah. And about the right now, the technology is actually growing up, and sometimes people are working remotely, and I think nowadays working remotely actually become more common right now, right? So, what do you suggest for people to succeed in virtual work environment as a remote?
I think both is important because I worked, in an office 5 days a week, and remote hybrid model I've worked for past 10 years. Yeah. And I think both is important because I think face-to-face contact with human, we are, as a human, we are social animals. Yeah. We like to socialize. Yeah. So it's important that we have the connection with our colleagues if you are in a job, so have at least 2 or 3 days into the office, go into the office, work from home, because I think it's important to have the space as well. And I, I think working remotely 100% can sometimes bring hindrance to people. And, sometimes when you don't manage yourself, because it's not easy, because, you know, say you've got back to back meetings, and depending on if you're working internationally as well, you're going into other people's time zone. Yeah. So if you got back to back meetings and you're constantly, at your desk, front of your laptop, then you are not getting, this is where people then suffer mental health issue, because they're going, they're constantly in the meetings, going into different one after the other meetings, not giving themselves enough break, and so I think that needs to be, wired into that, after one meeting, at least, if you can, have a 10-15 minutes break. If you can't, then at least lunchtime you should take at least half an hour to 45 minutes out. If you can go for a walk, you know for 15-20 minutes, go out for a walk if you're working from home 5 days a week. But I think hybrid model is, very, very good, because what that gives you is you save two, depending on how far you work from home. A majority of my jobs have work 1 hour travel into work. So that would save 2 hours of my time, which I could easily give it to my work, because to complete the task that was given, on my desk, basically. Also, it's more cost effective because I'm not spending time, money traveling into London, basically.
Mhm.
Because
Right.
it's expensive. Either you're driving into work for petrol, or you are going by trains and buses. That, costs money as well. So, that's also cost effective by working a couple of days working from home, you know.
Mm, yeah. So right, both are still important, even though now more common as people who's working remotely or things like that. Because yeah, sometimes we need to work and meet people face to face, is more socialized and things like that, like you just mentioned about. And how do you recommend individuals to go about networking or making connections, like in their field? You mentioned about communication, talking about the books, or talking about the hobby or whatever. Do you have any
Yes, I have,
insight?
you mean.
Yeah. Oh God, I really want to learn about it.
I think the other thing, especially if you, depending on which field you are in, like I'm in the HR field. So there are a lot of groups on LinkedIn that I am part of, and I have connected with, and I also some of those groups are onto WhatsApp groups as well. So I'm also part of like the HR network groups. So that's one way of actually networking. The other way of networking, we have there's a website called Eventbrite, and Eventbrite has a network, of different professions. You could also connect with people through that as well, right? Depending on what's your interest is, you can actually network in that way. So I have a number of interests. I mean, one of my interests is my coaching. My coaching. One is HR. So I have like you are as part of that network of my coaching, colleagues. So
Yeah.
I have a coaching colleague. So I'm part of life coaching network as well. So there are so many different networks. I'm also spiritually way inclined, so I am also part of a spiritual group as well. Where I network there. So so what's happening? Like as you know, in life coaching we have the eight part of our lives. Yeah. So I think it's important that you look at that eight part of your life and say, how can I have a networking in each part? And I tell you, before 2020, the one part which I felt wasn't fulfilled for me was my friendship part. Yeah. So the recreation and friendship, because my focus has always been like my career, and I said to my husband, I said, where I feel I don't feel fulfilled is I have friends. And funny enough, then I embarked on the life coaching career, and I've made wonderful friends through that, and I would say you've been one of them. So it's it's so important to is recognize what part of our lives is not working for us, and then working on that part and see how I can fulfill that.
Yeah. Hmm. Well, I think this is the power of connection and the open mind and be flexible to learn new things in life, so we can
Yes,
get another inspiration and the idea from other people who we meet in the new environment, relationship, new communities, and etc. etc.
that's correct.
Mm. Oh wow. Oh gosh, so interesting here. And how about you talk about personal development and career growth in here and how to be successful. And could you talk a little bit more about the role of learning and development in career growth and personal development and to reach the people you want to be as a person? You have a lot of experience also in HR, the finances, and etc. And coaching now as a mentor. Could you talk about it a little bit more for all of us who's watching this video?
Yes. I think, as I mentioned earlier, as for the career development, apart from, I think, beside whatever degrees you have done, ask for the role that you're doing. Sometimes what you will, your employers will do, because they've taken you on in a job, based on most probably whatever degrees you've done, and they know that, if you have done a degree, right? You have got discipline enough to do, because in a degree they give you assignment, they give you dissertation, so you have to be disciplined to achieve those things. Yeah. So when you go in a job, yeah, employers know that if you achieved a degree or some form of experience, that you have the discipline enough to do the role. Yeah. So once you're in the role, like I have a niece who studied something different, but she went into marketing. Yeah. And she didn't study marketing at a university. But then what happened? Because they could see the potential in her as she went into the job, what did the employer do? They actually gave her opportunity to they gave her training basically. You know, they put her on short trainings for the marketing, and she went and done short training there. Then they gave her a bigger training. So the employers do invest in their employee if they see the potential in that employee, you know. So if they, and what the employers do, because they want also the employees to be successful, right, they will give you further training, like in the HR. I'll give you an example what we do in HR. You know, once the managers are embedded in their new role, right, we HR have a HR training that we actually go and deliver to the departmental managers and the senior managers, stakeholders. Yeah. So what we do, we develop disciplinary, how to conduct disciplinary, how to conduct investigation, how to conduct grievance investigation, how to conduct grievance appeal. So how to do performance management. So all these different things that we know is required by a manager or stakeholder who are having a team under them. They need all these skills, unfortunately they don't know that by hand. So we as a HR team, we deliver these training to our managers. Yeah. So then we equip them. So when they do have a disciplinary meetings, they know how to conduct a disciplinary meeting. If they do have an issue within the department, they know how to conduct investigation meeting. And what that does, how to have a problem, also we do training on problem solving, how to solve problems within your own team. Yeah. How to do conflict management. So we as a HR team, we deliver, because not every organization have learning and development department, you know, because sometimes small organization may not have that department. So then that training aspect of it falls under HR basically, and especially the HR training. I believe, because I've got the experience, is best to be delivered by the HR department, because what we can do is we can also incorporate the employment law within that. That if you didn't do it in the right way, what employment law falls into that and what can happen basically. So I think one should, apart from asking your employer that what further training they can give them for their job, because that is important. I think employees should always ask that, is there any training for my role so I can do my job best of my ability. I've come with this, but I would like to further training.
Yeah.
And many employers do give further training for the job. Like specifically HR jobs require the CIPD qualification, and sometimes some people actually say I'm actually studying it. So while they're studying it, they take from the staff. Sometimes the employee may say, "Would you mind sponsoring me?" For the course, for the training. And often managers, employers do sponsor you to do that. The other thing is, if an employer sponsoring you for say 3,000 4,000 pound worth of training, then they will have an expectation that you remain with the organization for at least 2 years. you know they make you
Yeah.
sign a sponsorship agreement that if you do leave within the 2 years, then you may have to pay back proportion of that training cost, basically. So that will happen. But I think one should always acquire to get more experience and training within the job role they're doing. That's one thing. But within their own time, I think they should then do some personal development.
Yeah. Mm. I think the training is very important also in the work employment
Yes.
company to actually train people. Uh, yeah, related how to be successful and stuff like that.
Yes, 100%. And
Mm.
I would put this down to individual managers of the department. Like, I'll give you an example. In my last job, I worked in a manufacturing organization, and the engineering manager was very, very forthright. and he was very actively in his role. And he realized that he had 8 engineers working under him. Yeah, and he realized that, some of them required some training because they didn't have the training. So what he did his research. He actually established what training they needed, and then he put a proposal together, and he found out how much was the training. He put the proposal together, and he put it forward to the senior stakeholder and said why, he did a business case basically, and he said why he felt it was important that his 8 engineers require this training, and what, how it would be easy for the organization going forward once they have the training. And he actually got the training signed off by the senior manager, and all of them were trained. And again, as I said, they were sponsored because some of these trainings were like £4,000. So
Mm,
we had a sponsorship letter where he had a clause on it that we are actually training you, we are investing in you, and because as an organization we are investing in you, we expect that you remain with the organization for 3 years. And if you leave the organization within 3 years, then there were like the tables. Like first year, if you left in the first year, then you would have to pay back 80%. If you left in the second year, you would have to pay back 60%. And
yeah,
if you left in the third year, you have to pay back 20%. But if you left after 3 years, then basically you didn't have to pay anything back. And I think this is also good for the employee as well. Because if, say, for example, they've got this really good training, which was like £4,000 worth of training, but they've got 3 years of experience with the organization. If they, after 3 years, if the employee then went and looked for an alternative role, what they would actually get, apart from the qualification they would get as with the training, plus the 3 years experience, would bring them their salary level, like say 10, 15%, 10, 15,000 pound more than what they're earning now. So this is how one should think, that apart from employers are thinking, what am I gaining from this employee? They are paying you money to actually be employed with the organization. Employees should say, what am I contributing to this organization? Because one thing is, employers is contributing to the employee, but the employee needs to also contribute to the employer. It needs to be
yeah,
a two-way thing.
yeah. It's some kind of in balance here, right? Yeah. Mm, I think both of them are actually got the benefits from the training.
That's
Because
right.
is something that it's it's a new thing, learning new thing, which is to help the company grow and the person itself. I can tell.
That's right.
Talking about the balance, how actually important maintaining also the talking about the work life balance here in the professional uh, professional world in the company work life balance. You know what I mean, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And really, you picked a really good subject. Funny enough, I've actually did my dissertation. I've written a
Mm.
10,000 words dissertation on work-life balance. when I did my when I did my HR degree, and this was a while back, 20 years ago, to be honest. But the thing is, I think it's very, very important for everybody to have work-life balance. And I think employer has to understand that work-life balance is important for everybody. Besides, people, I don't know how people live their life, but I like to cook my own meals, from fresh, from start. So for me, work-life balance is important because as I cook my own meals, preparation takes time. By going for walks is important for my mental well-being. I recently joined a really, really exclusive gym near my home. So I go there And that actually, I've always been, funny enough, from very young age, I've always taken um, time out to go to the gym, do exercise, because it makes me happy when I exercise, because I'm using muscles, and I'm actually, increasing my serotonin. What happens? I mentally become happy. So when I go to the gym, then I go to the spa, I come home and I feel I can do like another 5 hours work,
Mm,
you know.
wow.
So, it's important waking up in the morning early. It's, important doing meditation for my, we can't say my mental well-being is my responsibility.
Mm,
Okay. And I think sometimes when I hear people, oh, my employer is not looking after my mental well-being. No, it's not an employer's responsibility to look after your mental well-being.
yeah.
Mental well-being is my responsibility. How I am actually doing my job, how I'm doing my day-to-day chores. Wake up 5 o'clock, do meditation. Go out for a walk, go and hug a tree, walk on the grass. You know, do things that makes you happy. Listen to books. Listen to some really positive stuff. There, in today's time, Uni, we have plenty of things that can actually help us overcome depression, anxiety.
Yeah.
YouTube is full of stuff that can help us. We just have to keep, our option open, our eyes open, and it's all about our mindset. You know, how am I actually diverting my mind?
Yeah.
You know,
Mm,
and that's how I do. I wake up early. I do every morning for last 35 years. I've actually meditated. So I'm an experienced meditator. Um, and I wake up, as I said, wake up early, meditate. First thing before I do anything, I meditate. Half an hour meditation. Then I do stretch exercise. Then I make cup of tea. Then I chill for 50. The reason I like to have a quiet moment first thing in the morning before I connect with the world. So that's why I wake up early, so I can do that. If I say, if I was to go to work 8 o'clock, I don't wake up 7 o'clock, because it will not give me enough time to do what I want to do.
wow. Mm,
So it's
wow.
this self-discipline is very, very important. In the morning, I will prepare some of the meals that I'm going to actually eat in the evening. So
Mm,
then, I can't have the excuse that I didn't have enough time, so I'm going to get a packed lunch or packed dinner. You know, healthy eating is very
wow.
important. You
Mm,
know, because if you
wow.
don't have health, I want to just share this. If you don't have health, then you don't have no life.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yes. So,
Mm,
all
yeah.
of these, like, in the coaching, we say the 8 aspects of life. If we
Yeah.
actually don't, you know, if we don't, connect the dots between the 8 aspects of life, right? We are not a happy human being.
Yeah. Mm. Interesting about our mental health. It's my responsibility. And here's the thing. As an HR, I oftentimes I heard about burnout because of work, and
Yes.
this is quite a common also in the nowadays in society, especially. What advice would you offer to someone actually dealing with feeling burnout in their career as an HR?
Yeah. And very good question, because I went through a burnout. It's quite normal in when you work in not just HR field, but when you work in a job for long time. I think you can, at some stage in your life, can go through a burnout. And I didn't realize it at the time when I was going through it, but when I came out of it, then I realized that what I was going through at that time was actually a burnout. you know and why I say this, When I was working in my last permanent job, this was before 2020, um, I went through, I think, about 4 years of burnout where I went through acid reflux. So, you know, I would go to work, I would have something to eat, and I feel sick basically, and I would throw up. And that went on and off for 4 years continuously, you know. And at that time, when I was going through that, I didn't think it was to do with my job, right? I felt that there was something wrong with it, but actually it was my mental trigger was triggering what was going on in my stomach, you know. So basically there's a correlation between the gut and the mind, you know. And and funny enough, when I left that job, the problem that I was going through was I had a very bad heart sinus issue as well. For nearly 2.5 years, I couldn't, you know, I would lose due to sinuses, very bad sinus issue. I lose my voice and I couldn't speak up. And funny enough, I thought to myself, what's going on? You know, and I thought it was I was very, you know, my sinuses were bad. So I was actually, you know, treating the symptoms that I was going through, but I wasn't connecting the two dots together. You know, as soon as I left the job, guess what? So everything that I was physically experiencing actually subsided.
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
so it was, you know, then that made me realize that actually it was the issue that, you know, I was going through some issues in the workplace, right? I wasn't mostly dealing it in the way that I was happy with, and because I
Mm.
wasn't dealing with it that I was happy with, my body was reacting to it.
Right.
Right? So my you know, my advice to anybody out there who's going through any physical symptoms in the workplace, then either get a coach and talk it out, because sometimes, you know, and you need to, and I really would say you need to go to a professional person, not go and talk to your mom, your dad, or your friend, because they will give you experience, you know, they will give you advice according to their experience. Yeah.
Mm.
But a professional who doesn't have any connection with you gives you, you know, it's there to listen to you, and by listening, right, that you will actually get a guidance, you know, to deal with your, if you're going through a burnout. And I think a change helps, you know. So if somebody's unhappy in a job, right, don't remain in a job, because what happens, because you're mentally disturbed anyway because you're unhappy with the job. Yeah. And if you can't deal with the job, you can't speak up about the issues that's going on, and you know, if you did speak up sometime, you may not get the result that you're looking for. So sometimes you haven't got an option but to leave the job. When you leave the job, right, that's when you will become better in your health as well, because you don't have that stopping you moving forward. But you can only do that, you know, get a help from a coach, go and have 6 sessions with a coach, 12 sessions with a coach, because that will really, really help a person to really, really focus on what they want to do in their life.
Yeah.
And I did this, you know, I left my full-time job, and as soon as I left my full-time job, I actually stumbled on a life coaching career. You know, I
Mm.
did a mindfulness coaching, you know, and I became a part of an academy for 2.5 years, and then I started contributing to that platform, and that actually automatically gave me more confidence in myself, but it
Mm.
helped me alleviate the burnout that I was going through, you know.
Mm. Yeah. Um, I love the idea and the advice that you've just gave about if you feeling burnout or you have the imposter syndrome, reach out to the professional for a few sessions, something like that. You know, because
Yes,
it's gonna help you to actually how you can overcome all of these kind of uh, challenges and things like that. Of course, yeah. I'm curious about going back to the career and employment here. Before I ask you to before we wrap up, are there any particular industries or job sectors you think will be especially promising for job seekers in the near future?
No, I think follow your own intuition. You know, often don't go according to what family says to you or become an engineer. I come from an Indian background. So they say you become a doctor, become an engineer, become an accountant, But for me, I feel that people should follow what makes them happy, you know. And
Right.
as I said earlier, often people go into a university. University to do what? So people can have fun, basically. But to me, this is my opinion, yeah. I feel university sometimes is a waste of time, you
Yeah.
know, because you're spending, especially in England, you're spending £40,000 over 3 years of degree, right? And not every parents have that kind of money. So what happens? The student has to take out £30,000 loan, yeah.
Mm,
Before you even started on your life journey, what you've done, you're in a £30,000 debt,
yeah.
you know, and you're starting your life with debt. Where are you going to go with that, you know? But if you take an option of doing an apprenticeship, or if it's not the apprenticeship option is not available to one person, then one should, start working, and at the same time, as you get to know what you really want to do in your life, in your career, because not every time you know exactly what you want to do in your life, when you come to 18. But what you do when you take on a different jobs, it will give you an option of then knowing what you really want to do in your life. Then you take that career path. Once you take that career path, then you start doing small courses, so little trainings that you can afford to do, you know.
Mm,
Then you might embark with an employer which will spend, which they might go and spend like 3 4 thousand pounds to actually upskill you, uptrain you, you know. But if you show the willingness to learn and grow, what the universe does gives you the steps and the path to get in there, you know.
mm. Oh wow, this is so uh, interesting. I would say, and gosh, yeah, I think it's follow what you want to be and
That's
what giving you the fulfillment in your life instead of listening whatever that around you have to do this, the kind of example about the family background and stuff like that.
that's
Okay, so going again, why is it, and what is actually that the book about, why is only 90 days to become successful in the new job?
Now, the book actually, the reason I think, because I heard, many people I've spoken to in the family, I find, sometimes people do struggle, to embed themselves within a new job. So that gave me the idea that because I haven't worked in HR for past 24 years, I have a really good experience about it and understanding about it. So then I thought to myself, yeah, let me actually write a book on it. And it's a short book. So, it's not going to be, long-winded book, but it gives people an idea of what's to keep in mind as they walk in a new job, you know. And I want to just share, I've got 12 points of the book, and I just want to share before we wrap up, is that if that's okay with you, yeah?
Oh, this is what actually the idea. Yeah, sure, of
So the
course.
first point is setting the foundation, is which what that means is understanding your role and responsibility. So the one individual, once they've got their job, they've got their job spec, is understanding what is your role and what is your responsibility. The question they need to ask, their manager is in the first, first 3 months, what is your, what do you want me to achieve? So you say crafting your action plan, so goal setting and prioritizing. So ask your manager, what should I prioritize for first 90 days? Then the navigating the company culture, building relationship and understanding dynamics. So the other thing is you can ask your manager, I would like to know the other departments. So then you get to know other people within the organization. So spend a couple of hours with different people within the other departments. Then the fourth one is mastering the time management, maximizing productivity and efficiency. So, you have to master the time management, as I earlier spoke about it, to organize yourself, make a list of things to do and, make a tick as you're achieving them. Effective communication, I think, is very, very important that one should learn how to effectively communicate themselves with your manager as well as other team members within the organization. And continuous learning, which we talked about as well, it's really important that you continuously learn. So in a new job you will be learning the new ways of working, because every organization, even though you may have experience, you every organization works very differently, so you are learning new ways of working within that organization, and you are enhancing your skill sets again. you know Managing challenges. So, there might be obstacles, setbacks within. So you might be working on a project. So there might be setbacks. So actually, handling how to do setbacks. So, talking to your manager, also read up on it and get some ideas about it so you can actually speak to your manager about it. Building your network. So cultivating connection for support and growth. So this is very, very important depending on which job you're doing, right? Talking to different departments, if you're working interlinked with other departments, having good relationship with other department helps you, cultivating connection. And what that does, it helps you actually do your job better as well, you know, because you may have to say, for example, I work in HR, so I actually work with payroll department. And if somebody is not being paid correctly, if I've not had a good relationship with the payroll manager, what happens when I ask for them to sort it out? Sometimes they don't do me a favor and they say, no, you have to wait. Because I've got a good relationship with my payroll manager, they might do me a favor and actually sort out somebody's pay, earlier than they would have done otherwise. So, showcasing your values, so strategies for visibility and recognition. Visibility is really, really important in an organization. As we talked about hybrid working, apart from working online, you're talking to people, you're still visible. So visibility, be going into an office, showing, going and seeing people, just talking, to people, being visible is so important in a job role. Seeking feedback. So, also very, very important. They're asking your manager to give you constructive feedback for improvement. Okay, if you felt this is not like your requirement, then how can I do it so then I can meet the requirement that you want. So actually asking for constructive feedback, you know, and don't take the criticism, personally, because sometimes, it's not personal, it's to do with the job. But if you feel personal, that it's a personal feedback, then actually communicate back to them. I think from my experience, what's so important that I will actually give advice on is, open communication is really, really important. When we don't openly communicate and we think that other person can read our mind, then that's when you will get into the place where you feel unhappy within your own self. 11th is maintaining work-life balance, which we talked about as well. Have a strategy for sustaining performance. So, what having, give, if your job is 40 hours a week, then, give that 40 hours a week to the organization. And then also the other 8 hours, that you have, use it wisely for you maintaining your mental well-being. As I said, read books, go for a walk, cooking. What actually makes you happy? Not just sitting in front of the TV watching Netflix. Yeah, that's one of the things you can do, but also maintaining your mental well-being, going out into the nature is very important. And the 12th is reflecting and refining. So, constantly evaluate your progress and planning for long-term success. So, if you're there for 3 months, what can you do after further 3 months? What can you do further 3 months? So, constantly upskill yourself. Try to do at least one continuous professional development course per year. If you can't do it, um, can't do it like a couple of courses per year. Do at least one course, because with that, what the hat does, it helps you actually see that where you were and how you have progressed in your life. So I mean, in this conversation, we talked quite deeply about all this. Funny enough, as you say, even though I've written it, I've actually just know that this is what is required.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to wrap it up with. And I really, really encourage people, if
It's
people
so
are
beautiful.
going through things, then really go to a professional coach. There are
Yeah.
some really good coaches out there. Uni's been one of them. Myself is one of them. But there are plenty out there. Good, genuine coaches who will help.
Wow, this is so amazing. We talked deeply about it at the beginning, and then you wrap it with the 12 things um, about how to become successful in 90 days, especially in the new job. And wow, so I think I'm writing it right. So one is setting the foundation. Two is, what is it? Number two.
Shall I send it to you? I will send
Um.
you.
Okay. Yeah.
Again, two is first is setting the foundation. Two is
Yeah.
crafting your action plan.
Mm-hmm.
Three is
Crafting.
crafting your action plan.
Yeah. And number three is,
Navigating company culture.
yeah.
Four is time management.
Yeah. Mastering the time management.
Yes. Fifth
Number
is
six is effective communication. Six
communication.
is continuous learning. Seven, managing challenges. Eight,
Yes.
building network, whatever with the another department or whatever.
Yes.
And nine, visibility. 10, seeking feedback, which you mentioned constructive feedback here. 11,
Yes.
maintaining life balance. And 12, reflecting and refining long-term success.
Yes.
Okay, wow, amazing. This is beautiful wrap up actually. So, Ham, do you have anything else that you want to share to our audience here, my audience on this video?
As I said, I hope they get something out of our conversation today. And if they feel that they need further guidance and they want a career coaching, I'm also a career coach. But if they need any form of coaching, I know Uni is also a coach as well. Myself is a coach. If we can both coach, if you need, but feel free to contact us. Feel
Yeah,
free to connect. I really appreciate you giving me this time.
it's a really my pleasure because I believe that you have a lot of value that you know you can share to the world. And to be honest, I actually learned a lot from this conversation. So thank you very much, Soham, for your insight. It's so wonderful and so insightful.
Thank
And
you.
I'll put all of the link how to reach out to you, all your social media and stuff on the description. So everyone, if you want to reach Soham for career coaching, so you can reach out to Soham. And I make sure the link is going to be in the description below. So thank you so much, Soham, for your time. And thank you
Thank
so much for everyone who's watching this video.
thank
Bye.
you. Bye.